with that, we have concluded our committee work, and I would like to move on to calling the meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Ms. Kiss, will you please call the roll?
Thank you. Trustee Abrego. Trustee Adamson. Trustee Carney. Chairman Day.
Here.
Trustee Eisen. Trustee Fagan. Trustee Farrar. Trustee Furstenberg. Trustee Fong. Trustee Garcia. Trustee Kames. Trustee Kimbell. Trustee Krinsk. Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis. Trustee McGrory. Trustee Melendez de Santana.
Here.
Trustee Morales. Governor Newsom. Speaker Rondon. Trustee Sebelius. Trustee Simon. Trustee Steishauser. Trustee Taylor.
Here.
Superintendent Thurman. And Chancellor White. Okay, Chairman Day, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Kiss. Okay, this is the time in which the board hears from public speakers. And in fairness to all speakers who wish to speak, and to allow the committees and the board to hear from as many speakers as possible while at the same time conducting the public business of their meetings within the time available, the public may address the full board during the plenary session on any non-agenda topic that is related to the university. The committee chairs and the board chair will continue to determine and announce reasonable limitations on the time for each speaker, and seating, pooling, or yielding remaining time to other speakers will not be permitted. Totality of time allotted for public comment during today's plenary session will be 30 minutes. Speakers will have 1 minute each for their remarks. A buzzer will indicate when a speaker's time ends, and I ask that the speakers please yield the microphone so the next speaker may address the board. Ms. Kiss, please call the speakers.
Thank you. When I call your name, please come forward in any order, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. William Blischke, Mayor Albert Robles, Anthony Smith, and Craig Stone.
Good morning. I'm William Blischke, immediate past president of CSU IRFSA, and I watched your meeting yesterday, but I wanted to make a few quick remarks. We're going to have our executive committee meeting via Zoom again, but as immediate past president, what I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to remain liaison to the board even though I'm no longer president, but I'm going to make a major proposal, and that is to create a CSU IRFSA volunteer coordinating committee. While I was president, we surveyed the campuses, found out that there were, on the 23 campuses, there are 23 different ways in which our retirees remain involved in their campuses. And as Trustee Sebelius said yesterday, one of them is as advisors for EOP students. I plan to resurvey them. I also plan to suggest 2 new immediate forms of volunteering. One is to get our students to register to vote and out to vote in the 2020 election, and we will help any campus who is involved in this. Secondly, and very importantly, I'm going to encourage them to be involved in getting people to respond to the 2020 census so we don't lose billions of dollars in seats in the Electoral College and House of Representatives. So we're going to meet in San Jose for our State Council meeting on October 5th. You're all welcome. It's a public meeting. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Smith. The reason I'm here as a former student, I just want to discuss educational privacy and educational security. I just want to state when I first applied to Cal State Long Beach, it was dependent on the meeting and interview. And at this interview, 2 ladies identified themselves, one didn't. And when it was discovered that the other, I didn't know who the lady was, the Cal State University Long Beach lady told me that, said that was illegal. Then I want to fast forward a couple years later when I applied to Cal State University Fullerton. I attended POS 317 was Black Politics. I only attended the class one time, and I received a grade of B. After I requested the student union remove that from my transcript, I was told no. Then that one again, educational security. After reporting this, I was subjected to retaliation. It was the political science department told me that they only seen that with employees, not with students. Such retaliation was trying to start fights inside the classroom. That would have been POS 375, Law and Politics, to which I had to withdraw. And I bring this to you guys to try to get this resolved to find out why were the investigations in my education. Thank you.
Meha and Miyuyam, I greet you in the two. These are two greetings of the indigenous people of where we're at here in Long Beach. So when we start, we will typically acknowledge the indigenous people of the land. And I'm come here today to speak for the passage of the resolution by the CFA so that we initiate this process in the CSU. I teach at Cal State Long Beach. We affectionately call this Cal State Puvungna. In 2016, we became the first university in the United States to bury the indigenous people of the land on the land. And we did that under our president, Jane Close Conley's leadership. We have an excellent relationship, and we're a little ahead of the curve. When we had our convocation, this was not done once, it was done twice. So this practice is something that happens in Australia, it happens in New Zealand, happens in Canada regularly. Usually, we are ahead of the curve. We're the oldest American Indian Studies program west of the Mississippi. It's our 50th anniversary. It's the 50th anniversary of ethnic studies in the CSU. I hope that you pass this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Alvitre, Monique Castro, Ruben Noel Ramos, Andrew Flores, and Haley Antonovich.
Hi, Monique is not available to come. She is a mental health expert and specializing in the Native American community. There's been a tragedy in our community. She was not able to speak, but she supports the land acknowledgement and asks that this be done promptly and with local Native nations, Native faculty, and our union and the community. Thank you. And Cindy Alvitre is not here as well.
Next speakers, please. Ruben Noel Ramos, Andrew Flores, and Haley Antonovich.
My name is Andrew. My pronouns are he, his, him, el. I am studying psychology at Cal State Fullerton as a student organizer for students of quality education. I'm here to speak against the proposed four-year quantitative reasoning requirement for admissions that may begin as soon as 2026. I'm not here to tokenize myself or attempt to appeal to your humanity by sharing my struggles as a proud young brown parent from a family of immigrants. You don't deserve that because honestly, I don't think any of you know what humanity is or what it looks like. I've watched literal generations of students come up to where I'm standing here today and share their stories just to get y'all to do what is morally right. Time and time again, you have proposed to us that you act only in your own interest. We have seen this through the Grad Initiative 2025, Executive Order 1100R, your consistent opposition to ethnic and queer studies, and now this quantitative reasoning proposal. I will not stand and watch the entire system of education fall further into neoliberalism as capitalism turns our schools into assembly lines where student worth is measured by their human capital and how much they will contribute to the workforce. If this quantitative reasoning requirement is passed, that is one less course that a student may or may not have to take when entering the CSU, and that's if they are admitted. And this is part of the board trustees' broader scheme to push students out with a degree as efficiently as possible. You are restructuring our CSU to fit your business model that maximizes your profits based off how fast you can push students off the graduation production line. Let's not forget about the $1.5 billion of so-called surplus money that you all have accrued over the years, 8% of which was student funded. Honestly, fuck all of you that continue to shut out our voices in the decision-making process. No more decisions about us without us. We want our CSU back.
Okay, moving on. Rocky Sanchez, Tessie Reese, Sergio Roldan, and Shirley Staten.
Good morning, Rocky Sanchez, VP for Representation, CSUEU from Cal Poly Pomona. I'm actually here. Hopefully I'll be able to say everything that I want to say, and it's in regards to the security measures that you all are taking. You've decided that, one, you want to make sure that we're less than the rest of you, because I didn't see any of all of you on that side go through those barriers. Go to the restroom, you don't have to go out again. You've decided that there is a them against us. You all are the us, we are the them. So you really need to talk to us and tell us what this is, and also try to work something out so that we're not feeling as if we're less than, or all of us go through this. Every single one of us that enter this building. Thank you.
Tessie Reese, Unit 2 Chair, and I'm going to echo what Rocky just said. Security is very important, but when there's only a handful of folks, which seems to be the audience, that has to go through your security measures, how safe is that, really? I mean, if your reason is for security, shouldn't we all be going through the same channels for security? And there's other ways too, once we're in, geez, if we go to the bathroom, there's a little card maybe we can keep, so that we have to go back in and out or hold our bladders until like we have to burst. So maybe rethink this, and if we're going to continue it, it's for all. Thank you.
Good morning, Board of Trustees. My name is Sergio Roldan. I'm the statewide chair for Bargaining Unit 5. I'm from the San Marino campus, where I proudly served for 25 years. I want to ask that the CSU adopt a bullying prevention program. It's no secret bullying happens everywhere within the CSU, and it needs to stop. Most recently, on August 20th, civil service employees were able to successfully add language that protects from this abuse that is unacceptable. I urge the CSU to take bullying seriously and to adopt a system-wide policy that prohibits it. Thank you.
Good morning, Board of Trustees, Presidents, Chancellor White. Shirley Staton, CSU Fresno, Unit 7, Bargaining Unit Chair, statewide. I have served on the campus at Fresno State for 33 years. I would like to take a moment and address Chancellor White and ask you if you remember when you were on Undercover Boss and how you felt that those people were being treated. CSU employees are in the same boat. We have gone without steps. We went through furloughs. We have meager, very small increases over the years. And for us to sit here this morning and hear you talk about executive compensation, I'm just appalled. It almost made me sick. I just can't believe that we are just treated below, under, and second-class citizens, in my opinion. Thank you for listening.
Rich McGee, Neil Jacklin, and Martin Brenner.
Hello again, Rich McGee. In the last 20 years since the opening of Cal State San Marcos, the CSU enrollment has gone up by nearly 85,000 students, the equivalent of about 2.5 times the Cal State Fullerton campus. That workload is huge. It's being carried on the backs of your faculty and staff, but you don't see it. We make do. Every single time one of us leaves for whatever reason, our positions are seldom refilled. Instead, they're contracted out or given and distributed to our coworkers. You ask about adding 5% more students to the campuses. We ask about adding 5 or 10% more staff to the campuses to bring us back to what we had before the furloughs, which occurred in roughly 2009. Thank you.
Good afternoon, trustees, Chancellor White, campus presidents, and guests. My name is Neil Jacklin. As a California, as well as president of California State Employees Union, I sympathize with the sentiment that these proceedings should be held whenever possible in an environment that maintains publicly appropriate discourse, relevancy, and civility. Nominally, no one should be subject to personal attacks, character assassination, or defamation in any setting. Your employees have taken 2 days and traveled many miles from their homes and campuses to address you for 1 to 3 minutes. We believe the ability to bear witness to the board's actions and deliver comment to the board is of critical importance. I respectfully request that you do not impede our ability to do so, avoiding discourse that is unpleasant and, worst case, inappropriate. We believe that the CSU representatives' speeches are relevant to the 16,000 employees we are here to represent. We ask that you do not infringe upon our ability to speak on their behalf. Thank you.
Martin Brenner, CSUEU. I was going to touch on Neil's subject, but yeah, he said it better than I would have. So I do want to make a comment about transparency and good faith. I spoke on this issue before. That's very tough, difficult to bargain with you when I feel like you come in and we say something and then that policy is applied another way. I want to talk a little bit really quickly about the audit. I read about the audit. We have our feelings about the audit. Lieutenant Governor spoke about it. It dominated the last trustees meeting. I also went up and heard the budget announcement. There is no one, absolutely no one, that has a problem with you establishing a rainy day fund, and we all need to have that. But the auditor said that if that were really true, that these were unencumbered funds. That's how they were categorized. If you have a rainy day fund, you have a rubric, you have rules that define it. And that's what the issue is here. It's never been about whether you should have a reserve. It's whether you define that reserve, whether there's rules that apply to that reserve. And now that we're going a few months down the line where you're supposed to make that report, what you should be doing is defining a reserve policy, making it transparent and reporting on it, and not coming up with all these smoke and mirrors about why this money that was clearly undefined, did not have reserve policies applied to it, has been there. And it's about transparency, and sometimes you doth protest too much. Have a reserve fund, define it, make it public.
And our final speakers, Kate Spear, Danielle Wilson, and Charmaine Lawson.
Hi, good morning. My name is Danielle Wilson. I'm here on behalf of Unite Here Local 11, which is the Hotel Workers Union. Yesterday we gave testimony on the proposed CSUN Hotel that you all approved, and we're urging you today to please pull this item from the consent calendar. The issues we raised yesterday deserve critical care and attention, and we really urge you to pull the item today for consideration. And just to remind you, our main concerns were regarding the developer that's been selected, which is Corvius, and the fact that the CSU system needs more student housing, not more hotel rooms. Please pull this item from consent. Thank you.
Good morning. As a mother of a murdered student at Humboldt State University, I'm deeply concerned about the safety and future of HSU students. What are the protocols when students are physically, mentally, and verbally abused on or off campus? How is that information communicating clearly to the students? What procedures are currently in place to assist students and their families when safety becomes a concern? Safety is a pandemic at HSU. HSU is recruiting students of color into a community filled with hate. Students are walking and living amongst Nazis and white supremacists. Students are being assaulted regularly and their lives are being lost. Most importantly, students don't feel safe in Humboldt County. Who is advocating for the student at HSU? What are their names, titles, and how can students and family reach out to them? Who advocated for the young black freshman who was assaulted? He was stabbed on August 26th, the first day of school. This year, my son, David Josiah Lawson, was viciously murdered on the streets of Humboldt County. His murderers still walk amongst bright, ambitious, and driven students. The list goes on. People of power need to be held accountable. District Attorney Maggie Fleming, City Manager Karen Deemer, Arcata Police Department, this board has turned a blind eye and failed our students. Most of these students are escaping a life of circumstances. Going off to college is a dream come true. Do your job. Protect our students. They are our future. President Jackson, you were asked about my son's murder and the safety of students at HSU. You stated you would not feel safe walking in Los Angeles after 10. Majority of these assaults of HSU students took place in broad daylight. Are you blaming students for going out after 10 p.m.? Are you saying they deserve to be murdered and assaulted? In Humboldt County, they have a saying, the redwood curtains. What goes on behind the redwood curtains, stay behind the redwood curtains. I'm here to expose the redwood curtains because I will get justice for my son. The good old boys. Stick with the good old boys. And President Jackson, I hope that you're here to do the job of the students of HSU. Stop recruiting them if you cannot protect them. It's been 29 months since I lost my son, and I'm still fighting for him. Bring back KHSU radio. Justice for Josiah. There is now an incentive for high school students to be issued scholarship to go to Humboldt State University. Students are being murdered, and you guys are not doing a damn thing about it. Do your job. Protect our children. Protect our families. This is unfair. I drove 3.5 hours to get here, and I get 1 minute to speak. That is not fair. We work hard as parents. Our children work hard, and their lives means more than any money. And money is being sheltered and being pushed to bring these students up to Humboldt State, to a community, again, that is filled with hate towards students of color. Again, a young man, a freshman, was assaulted. He was stabbed on the first day of school, you guys. The first day of school, walking in Arcata on G Street. It's literally blocks away from the university. What are you guys doing? How many other parents must stand here and fight for their dead child? We don't want another David Josiah Lawson. Thank you.
Say his name. David Josiah Lawson. Say his name. David Josiah Lawson. Say his name. David Josiah.
For being here today, Chairman Day, that concludes public comment.
I'm sorry, I'm Kate Spear. My name was called for public comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Kate Spear. I'm here speaking on behalf of Unite Here Local 11, the Hotel Workers Labor Union. I want to urge you to pull the item regarding the CSUN Hotel Development Project from today's consent calendar. It requires far more discussion than it was given yesterday. Just to remind you, our are included in a Reuters investigation, which interviewed families at Fort Meade, where military family housing was operated by Corvius, as well as other families. The Reuters investigation found that, quote, among the problems in the homes were a ceiling that collapsed onto a child's bed, roofs riddled with leaks, peeling lead paint, a wasp infestation, mold blooms, waterlogged drywall, and a kitchen gas leak. This developer and the development agreement requires way more attention than it was given yesterday. Just 45 minutes ago, Senator Elizabeth Warren tweeted about this developer, asking why CSUN would be considering a developer and a development agreement that is currently under this investigation. Thank you.
Chair Day, my name is Kevin Weir. I was supposed to be on the list to speak this morning. I'm hoping you can spare another minute.
Sure, 1 minute.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm here to speak about the security measures you put in. What you put in can rightly be called security theater, the symbolic practice of security that yields no meaningful increase in actual safety while provoking a very real chilling effect on the ability of the public to present their concerns to you. These new security measures are thoroughly unnecessary and send the wrong message to the public, especially CSU students. Most members of the broad CSU community will receive this message as, you do not belong, we do not trust you, we don't want to hear what you have to say. The building of walls to keep people out has been a dominant theme in conversations across this country for far too long, and it's unacceptable that it would extend to the People's University and the students we serve. Are you really so afraid of your students? If so, perhaps you should invest more deeply in mental health resources by hiring tenure-line counselors and bringing the ratio of counselors to students in line with national guidelines. Are you really so afraid of your faculty and staff? If so, maybe you should consider treating all of us with the dignity and respect we deserve, rather than appearing to make the offensive assumption that we are out to do harm to others. In conclusion, this security theater is also dangerous because it has racialized impacts. It is a reminder of the state violence that we know that some members of the public are more vulnerable to than others. Metal detectors and police dogs are more likely to intimidate, silence, and deter visitors to these offices by those who are the most marginalized in our society. While it may send a message of safety to you, board members, it also sends a distressing message of exclusion to everyone else. How much did all of this cost? Rather than the symbolic security theater, the CSU should put resources into more full-time counselors on our campus, to supporting our housing and food insecure students, and walls, gates, and dogs on patrol should have no place in the People's University.
Thank you, and thank you to all the public speakers for taking the time to travel to Long Beach and share your thoughts and concerns with the board. We truly appreciate it. I'd like to move now to the chair's report. And to begin with the new academic year underway and hundreds of thousands of students back at work towards their degrees, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the nearly 50,000 faculty and staff who work tirelessly to sustain our ongoing commitment to inclusive excellence across the CSU. Faculty, administration, advisors, mental and physical health providers, public safety officers, veterans resource staff, literally everyone who makes up the CSU family. I'd like to thank you for all that you do. Your work has a tremendous impact on the more than 480,000 students pursuing their life ambitions and academic goals. From the students who are several years into earning a degree, to those who are setting foot on CSU campuses for the very first time, and perhaps with a bit of trepidation. Indeed, the first semester brings an unfamiliar environment, new peers, new classes, new professors, new assignments, and new challenges. To be sure, it is an exciting time. But with that excitement comes the potential to be overwhelmed. And that's why I am deeply grateful that each of our 23 campuses provides mental health services with highly skilled licensed mental health counselors and on hand to assist students as they navigate the complexities of university life. Clearly, there is more that we can do in this regard, and we will continue to do so. A recent American Council on Education report titled Investing in Student Mental Health, Opportunities and Benefits for College Leadership describes how campuses can prove instrumental in the prevention and early treatment of mental health disorders. The report notes that most mental health disorders emerge by the age 25, and that the earlier treatment is received, the better the lifetime outcomes. It also discusses how mental health services can help students be more successful in their courses, stay enrolled, and achieve their graduation goals. Chancellor White recently sent a letter to all incoming freshmen, welcoming them to their new collegiate homes. In it, he touched upon the myriad of services our campuses provide to ensure that students have the support they need and when they need it. In the letter, Chancellor White told them, and I quote, "We have your back, so don't be afraid to ask for help." Thank you, Chancellor White, for saying that. It's true, and the board agrees. From mental health providers to advisors to faculty members, this is true across the CSU. The team effort that underpins our system-wide approach to inclusive excellence is key to our continued success. As an example, a new monthly feature on calstate.edu highlights how Graduation Initiative 2025 supports student success. The inaugural post discusses how first-generation student and Sacramento State sophomore Ignacio Ochoa benefited from the campus Finish in 4 program. At first, Ignacio was reluctant to take more than 12 units at a time, but signing the Finish in 4 pledge motivated him to become more proactive and, ultimately, a more successful student. His first semester, Ignacio completed 16 units and earned a 4.0 GPA. The following semester, he completed 18 units and earned a 3.9 GPA. Active in campus life, he now serves as an orientation leader, welcoming and assisting new students at Sacramento State. Stingers up, President Nelson. I encourage you to read these success stories to see how our Graduation Initiative 2025 efforts are supporting students and enabling the CSU to provide such remarkable educational value. It's also the time of year for collegiate rankings, and the media has again taken notice of the value of a Cal State degree. Money Magazine's 2019 list of the most transformative colleges includes 12 CSU campuses in its top 25, based on ranking factors that include graduation rates, early career earnings, the percentage of students receiving grants, and student loan repayment. And Washington Monthly lists every 23 CSU campuses in its, quote, best bang for the buck colleges in the West. They also had this to say: the California State University system continues to dominate. 12 Cal State campuses appear in the top 30 of the West rankings. Cal State deserves credit for showing a commitment to upward mobility across the system and the state, end quote. So, while it's certainly remarkable that CSU campuses make up virtually half of the campuses listed in the top 25 of one report, and all of our campuses are recognized for their value in empowering students across the state in another report, perhaps it shouldn't be surprising. Indeed, through the concerted efforts of our CSU family, every one of our campuses has earned these accolades. Efforts so remarkable and consequential that even in the media rankings designed to highlight individual universities, the CSU system shines through as a beacon of progress and promise. I'd like to thank you again, students, faculty, staff, alumni, presidents, for everything that you do. That concludes my report. Chancellor White, please present your report.
Thank you, Chairman Day. And before I begin my report, I'd like to again welcome our new trustees to their first board meeting. Trustees Krinsk and Kames, your insight and unique life experiences will undoubtedly enrich this board, as will your dedication to help the California State University fulfill its mission to benefit all of the students in California as in the nation. So again, welcome to the board. 1 week ago, I had the privilege of addressing a group of educational, business, and community leaders from California's Central Valley. The topic was one we grapple with across the Cal State University, across educational segments and across the state. Namely, how do we address capacity constraints to drive that social mobility that the chair just spoke about, to drive social mobility through increased access and completion in higher education? I left the Fresno State campus where the event was held, my alma mater, one of them, with a profound sense of optimism. It wasn't as if we had crafted a solution yet to this complex and pernicious problem over the course of our morning together, but rather my source of optimism was its willingness and the enthusiasm of the Central Valley's educational leaders and civic leaders to set aside self-interest to work together to elevate the entire region. The Valley's leaders, including our presidents, truly want what's best for the students and families they serve, whether the best fit for a particular student might be at a CSU, at a UC, an independent university, or a community college. They acknowledge and understand the very real economic challenges this region faces. But more important, they understand the remarkable talents and unrelenting determination of the Central Valley's students, so many of whom are not place-bound, but rather place-committed, who simply want to earn a high-quality education near their homes. to discover their passions and to gain the knowledge and skills to achieve their dreams, and ultimately to elevate their families and the communities that they deeply love. Indeed, this sort of authentic cooperation and collaboration across segments and among stakeholders is essential to developing innovative solutions to education's most vexing issues, whether on a regional, statewide, or national level. That is why I'm so pleased and honored to have been appointed to Governor Newsom's recently announced Council for Post-Secondary Education. I believe the council shows great promise to be a vital and effective consultative resource for the governor on issues related to access, affordability, student success and completion, and California's future economic prosperity. For years, the public education sector have demonstrated a willingness to work together for the benefit of all California students, whether it's developing transfer pathways from the state's community colleges, advocating for more robust financial aid, or addressing students' basic needs. On this point, I want to also quickly acknowledge the extraordinary contributions of the University of California President Janet Napolitano, who, as I'm sure most of you are aware, announced last week that she will be resigning from her position at the end of the academic year. Her intellect, her vision, and her willingness to engage with all stakeholders to expand educational opportunities for all Californians will be greatly missed. The Governor's Council that Janet and I and others sit on provides a new coordinating body for these sorts of long-standing collaborations and adds important voices representing economic development, finance, and labor, as well as the independent colleges and universities. This is significant. This is a significant integration. Higher education is an ecosystem, and now we'll all have key components of the ecosystem gathered around one table. With all the stakeholders present, the discussions will perhaps become more complicated, but ultimately they will be richer and more valuable, leading to more innovative and more comprehensive and more actionable solutions. I do sense a new energy, one that will keep the council from becoming mired in the age-old and ineffectual debate over the role of higher education, whether it's to promote an educated citizenry or to provide our students with the knowledge and skills they need for professional success. Of course, it's both. See how quickly that debate can be resolved? We want our students to be civically engaged, indeed productive members of their communities, and we want them to have a good job, to be nimble and versatile and creative problem solvers, to adapt to the changing future of work, to create a different future of work, to be scientifically and financially literate and culturally competent, to have all of the skills and personal qualities that set them on a course for lifelong achievement. I'm confident that members of the council are of like mind in this regard, and I'm pleased that we have system and institutional leaders on the council. Ideas that show the potential for moving the needle can be taken directly to our respective governance structures for consideration and appropriate action. Not to override systems of shared governance or the authority of this board, of course, but to prevent potential solutions from becoming bogged down in bureaucracy. So I think it's the right construct to advise the governor on bold and innovative ideas that serve current and future students, as well as the state. And importantly, I think California has the right governor in place to contribute to act on such bold ideas. As you all know, Governor Newsom and the legislature have made a strong investment in higher education and the CSU in this year's budget, and he has a clear and vital vision for the future of public higher education in California. I am pleased that the governor will be outlining that vision for us as part of the CSU's Graduation Initiative 2025 Symposium that will be held October 17th and 18th in Sacramento. The governor's participation in the symposium is another concrete example of his commitment to the CSU, and I encourage you to attend. In addition to the governor's remarks, the symposium provides a remarkably important opportunity to reflect on our most significant student success initiative, to identify what's working and what's not, and where adjustments need to be made. To gather with educational leaders from the CSU and beyond, to share best practices, promising practices, and to think deeply about the innovative ways we can help all of our students, regardless of income or background, of course, gender, race, ethnicity, or status, all of our students to achieve their academic, personal, and professional goals. I hope to see you there. And before I conclude, I wish to acknowledge Leroy Marista, president of Cal State East Bay, who announced his intention to retire in June of 2020. The way I see it, Leroy, this gives us 9 months to change your mind. Kidding aside, we're going to miss Leroy's constant professionalism, his institutional knowledge, and his kind, positive spirit. We will properly thank him later, and we look forward to his wise counsel and leadership until then. Chairman Day, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor White. Now I'd like to move to the report of the Academic Senate CSU. Dr. Catherine Nelson, Chair, please present your report.
Thank you, Chair Day. For the record, I was trained in the classics as well. Many of whom my professors, and this is my white male professors, used to refer to as DWMs, or dead white men. So for 20th century classics, you might want to add bell hooks and or Gloria Anzaldúa to your list to take a look at, to do a little bit of diversification. And with that, welcome to another academic year. Our September committee and plenary meetings were last week, and this report will briefly cover our activities and a few thoughts on the times that lie ahead, inspired by the events of the last few days. First, on our schedule last Thursday was an Interrupting Racism workshop ably facilitated by our CFA colleagues. I've received positive feedback from both ASCSU and CO colleagues who attended. Two big takeaways for me were first, the need to give up control of one's own narrative and listen to others whose perspective can tell us how our narrative might be and probably is in some way incomplete. Second, a companion lesson, and one that has been with me very deeply in this entire week, is learn how to call in instead of call out. That is, point out racism, sexism, and the like, but do it in a way that brings people into the conversation rather than shuts the conversation down or shuts other people down. In addition to the workshop, we've been working on resolutions. The first I'd like to mention is the first step in fulfillment of our promise made as we advocated against AB 1460 to take up the recommendation for an ethnic studies requirement made in the Ethnic Studies Task Force report. If you recall, AB 1460 by Dr. Weber out of San Diego called for an ethnic studies graduation requirement for the CSU. We work very closely with our CSU governmental relations colleagues in Sacramento on this bill, and we are gratified, though personally I'm somewhat surprised, that the bill did not emerge from the Senate Appropriations Committee to move forward in the legislative process. The resolution commits us to exploring with campus senates and our Council on Ethnic Studies colleagues a baccalaureate ethnic studies graduation requirement. The parameters of the requirement would be determined by the ASCSU based on guidance from our campus and council colleagues. We request that guidance by November 1st to include reflections on learning outcomes, whether or not there should be a general graduation requirement or a GE requirement, any campus or system specifics, and what an appropriate requirement review and approval process on campuses might look like. Make no mistake, there is a lot of passion and controversy all the way around on this issue, and we remain keenly aware of the challenges to implementation of such a requirement. Nonetheless, our responsibility is to find a way to channel that passion and work through that controversy to get to a place where we collectively can make this thing go. I commend my ASCSU colleagues for the substantive, robust discussion at last week's plenary to start us on that path. In my mind, it was a conversation reflective of shared governance at its finest. I also note that a companion resolution for an additional CSU cultural competence requirement was introduced, but it was tabled, effectively removing it from consideration. We also passed resolutions of commendation for our long-term colleagues Jerry Henley and Margie Merrifield in the Chancellor's office, both of whom left for other pursuits. We are very grateful for their long tenure of outstanding service to and accomplishments for the CSU and their valuable contributions to the work of the statewide Senate. We also considered several first reading resolutions. First is a resolution that urges the CSU to establish a database of contingent faculty interested in permanent positions that would be consulted by each search committee. And we also urge that the search committees be notified in writing that qualified contingent personnel can be hired without a nationwide search. Another first reading resolution continues our ongoing commitment to authentic student access and success through continued support for the proposal in front of the board to add an additional year of quantitative reasoning coursework to first-year CSU admissions requirements. As we have stated in past resolutions, if the board agrees to the proposal, we urge the CSU to take a variety of steps to ensure the equitable implementation of the new policy. Another first reading resolution acknowledges that the Chancellor's office and some campuses are located on unceded lands of the Tongva Gabrieleño and the Achachemen, thank you, Rob, Wanenu nations, and encourages the CSU to incorporate recognition of this fact into our Senate meetings. It also urges campuses to consult best practices to develop similar land recognition statements. We also considered a first reading resolution that requests the Chancellor's office to collaborate with the statewide Senate in developing a similar report to the one the Chancellor's office will share with the California legislature by December 2019 regarding progress in strengthening the ethnic studies discipline in the CSU, as encouraged in the Ethnic Studies Task Force report. This resolution, as all other first reading items, will be refined as it moves to second reading in our November plenary. In closing, I'm not quite sure who this is for in the room, but it addresses a lot of themes. The student scholarship awardees we met yesterday are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Their dedication to their education and public service, despite the challenges they face, is nothing less than inspiring and a lesson to all of us. I was on the committee that reviewed those portfolios, and many of us were in tears in that meeting. There's just no two ways about it. Their achievements are reflective of the heights our students continue to achieve and the best in us, everyone in this room, as we help them get where they are. What we do for the state of California is absolutely amazing. I've said that again and again and again. Let's remember that as we face the always challenging times ahead, whether it's continued conversations about an additional year of quantitative reasoning as an admissions requirement, an ethics studies requirement, new security measures at the Chancellor's office, or anything else that might come our way. When we disagree, let's remember to call everyone in, not out. When we disagree, let's remember to celebrate the best in us, all of us. We will all be better for it as we continue to stand as an example for what is possible, both for our students and a world that can surely use more of what we have to give. Thank you, Chair Day. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Now I'd like to move to the report of the CSSA. President Michael Wiafi, welcome back. Last meeting, we saw you via video.
Yeah.
How was Carnegie Mellon?
Oh, it was a time. Thank you, Chair Day. Good morning, trustees and members of the CSU community. I'm happy to be here in person this time to provide the Cal State Student Association report. I'd like to start by welcoming Trustee Krinsk and Trustee Kames to the Board of Trustees. We look forward to working with you both. On August 11th and 12th, CSSA hosted CS Unity 2019, the two-day CSU Student Advocacy Conference at Cal State Fullerton. Thank you, President Vergy and ASI President Aguilar for welcoming us to your beautiful campus. During the first day of CS Unity, 200 student participants heard from CSU experts, many of them sitting in this room here today, talking about issues impacting students and partners who are helping to solve them. CS Unity concluded the following day with advocacy conversations, an opportunity for students to speak directly with influencers and decision makers. During the over 100 meetings, students shared their experiences, their concerns, and their hopes for the future of the CSU. Our guests included alumni, faculty, Chancellor's Office leadership, and of course, members of the Board of Trustees. In addition to Executive Vice Chancellor Blanchard and Executive Vice Chancellor Jones, I'd like to thank Chairman Day, Vice Chair Kimbell, Trustee Abrego, Trustee Adamson, Trustee Fong, Trustee Garcia, Trustee Steinhauser, and Trustee Taylor for engaging in these meaningful dialogue with students. These conversations have already led us to working with administrators on innovative initiatives centered on collaboration. CS Unity 2019 served as an appropriate way to begin the academic year, creating a foundation for students to consider how to utilize their collective power to address the most pressing needs of our CSU students. With CSSA's new board in place and the legislative session coming to a close, I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you a few of our priorities coming this upcoming year, all of which we look forward to working with you all on. Recently, we were in Washington, D.C., and engaged in the national conversation on higher education, which served for me as a realization as to how we in the CSU fit as leaders into this discussion. We'll be staying up to date on the national higher education conversation, including the Higher Education Act reauthorization, which was last reauthorized in 2008 when CSU tuition was nearly half of what it is today. Back in California, we'll continue to advocate for ongoing funding for basic needs, ensuring we'll build and sustain the foundation of academic success for our students. And I was pleased to hear the conversation earlier in which some of the trustees shared similar urgencies. However, in order to address this crisis systematically for current and future students, we must fix the broken financial aid system, a system that has adverse side effects, including the basic needs crisis. This has been and will continue to be a priority for our students, and we have seen that also be a priority for the legislature. We look forward to partnering with the CSU in reforming Cal Grant to meet the full cost of attendance for our students. I recall from last fall, a friend would call me sometimes in the morning and ask if I could pick her up from the local shopping center and drive her to school. She was a commuter student because she couldn't afford to pay for a parking permit. The inability of financial aid to cover basic expenses results in the need of students who cannot even show up to campus, let alone pay attention in class. In conversations around student success, the impact of financial aid often goes overlooked, when in reality for most of our students, it's the determining factor for even showing up. While our sponsored bill, AB 532 on parking costs, did not make it through the legislative session, we still believe it's an important issue to be addressed. At the Joint Legislative Audit Committee hearing last month, Vice President Pang highlighted the need to not only look at alternative transportation models, but also address the fact that students continue to pay more for parking than faculty, staff, and administrators. This disproportionately affects commuter students who are at the greatest mercy of these parking rates. We appreciated hearing the commitment from the CSU on this issue during that hearing and the legislature's continued interest in hearing real solutions, and we look forward to collaborating in some of the auditor's recommendations. Thank you, Trustee Sebelius and President Neufeld, for taking the time to speak to the CSSA board during our most recent meeting this past weekend at Cal State San Marcos. We appreciate your time and commitment to the value of student voice. And also, if it makes you all feel better, our board meeting also ran past what was expected. Currently, our board of directors is taking a critical look at the quantitative reasoning proposal and will likely have a formal position by the next time we see you all. Until that time, we'll continue to compile research and perspectives to make an informed decision. Thank you to Chair Nelson and the Academic Senate for inviting students to the CSU Leadership Retreat, where Chair Karabit and I had the opportunity to discuss what inclusive excellence means to us. At this time, through the words of CSU affiliates, students, faculty, staff, administrators, alumni, trustees, I was able to reflect on what my own CSU experience means to me. Allow me to share with you a little of my own experience that's common for our students, which I was reminded by yesterday by some of the stories of the trustee scholars. In my first months as a student away from home, I questioned who I was. I questioned what I should be doing, my place on campus, and how to continue academically and professionally. An administrator who cares about me, who was willing to sit down with me and willing to take time to make an impact on my life. She showed me that I too had the ability to make a difference, not in the future, but now, while I'm a student. And if it wasn't for her sitting down with me and telling me that I had that ability to make that difference, I would not be sitting here in front of you today. I'm sure that most of us, and if not all of us, can point to a few people who made that difference for us, who, if they did not sit down and have the time and take that urgency to make that difference, that we would not be where we are sitting here today. As students, we can only achieve our fullest potential with the necessary resources, an accessible quality education, and a community of care. This environment must be fostered through unanimous realization that each student arrives with the specific needs that, once attained, will lead to our success. For me, it was having my questions answered. It was sitting down and having a conversation. For many students, it's increased resources. For other students, it's a friend. And we need to be a campus community that has those resources available for each and every student. We look forward to partnering with faculty, staff, and administrators, alumni, community members, and the Board of Trustees during this upcoming year. Chairman Day, this concludes the report of the Cal State Student Association. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, President Wiafi. I'd now like to move to the report of the CSU Alumni Council, which will be presented by Jeremy Addis Mills, Alumni Council President-elect, who is filling in for Michelle Power. Jeremy, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Day. I'm pleased to represent the Alumni Council today as President Michelle Powers is out of the country currently. First off, we wanted to congratulate all of the trustee scholars from yesterday. We know that they're all going to make amazing alumni, and we look forward to engaging with them in that capacity when that day comes. We had a meeting last month at Dominguez Hills as the Alumni Council. We saw a campus that is undergoing a ton of construction and transformation underway at the campus, and we were really excited to see what was happening there when we met. We really focused on two main things while we were at Dominguez Hills as the Alumni Council. We really focused on the idea of building bridges between the alumni and the student populations that are currently on campuses. We had presentations from UCLA and UC Riverside's programs to really sort of understand how they have built those bridges between their current student populations and their current alumni base. The alumni relations directors and the career service directors also had a joint meeting where they really sort of worked on aligning or tried to find ways to align their efforts to support Career Center success, to involve alumni and volunteer activities and in the Career Center program. So that was a really exciting thing. And then we had a very engaging presentation by Vice Chancellor Ashley about how alumni can engage in advocacy activities that we all thought was very, very, very good. The second thing we focused on at our meeting was the launch of the next alumni trustee process. July 2020 will be the conclusion of Trustee Adamson's term as the interim trustee. The nomination period will open. The nomination period is open through November 22nd, and so we encourage a broad and diverse pool of nominees to apply. Reach out to your campus if you're interested in applying for that position. We will then spend a substantial amount of time interviewing the trustees, and then we will forward a set of finalists. Before forwarding them for a final election by the Alumni Council that we'll be having this spring, essentially. If you want full details on that process, it's available at calstate.edu/alumni/trustee. Thank you, Chairman Day. This concludes my very short report.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And thank you all for your reports. At this time, I would like to once again welcome, probably for the third time, our newest trustees, Jeffrey Krinsk and Mariana Kames. And as I prepared you yesterday, it's customary to allow each of you to offer a few words of introduction and share with the board. So Trustee Kames, we'd like to start with you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mariana Kames, and I am a second-year student at San Diego State University. I'm currently studying International Security and Conflict Resolutions with a minor in econ. I was originally born in Iraq and immigrated to the United States about 8 years ago in pursuit of accessible education. Both of my parents did not receive higher education due to lack of opportunities and resources. I come from a big town full of hardworking and compassionate people. With that, I often ask myself, why me? Now, I don't have the answer to that question, and I don't believe that I ever will. But being aware of this has made me a passionate public servant. Education is often the only way for people from underserved communities to achieve new heights for themselves and their communities. Understanding this is recognizing that many students from the CSU value education as a beacon of hope to create a future for their families. As a first-generation and commuter student, the diverse and abundant resources that were available to me on my campus brought me into this room. However, it is important to note that not all students who need such resources have access to them. Being part of programs such as EOP and being involved in student government have all been critical to the foundation of my leadership and advocacy, and I hope that I will be able to amplify the voices of those who need such resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kames, and again, welcome. Trustee Krinsk.
I say hello to everyone, and I thank the many persons from the school and my fellow trustees and the experience that I've just begun to learn so much about. There's so much density of information, and there's so much background and positive feelings that I feel exhilarated and at the same time humbled by the opportunity provided to me to be here and make a contribution, possibly significantly, but even a small amount with the compared to the illustrious predecessors that have been at CSU, been trustees, is something that I aspire to, even if it's only a fraction of accomplishing just a fraction of what they were capable of. My background was graduating from law school at Boston University, beginning as a general counsel, or eventually beginning after passing the New York bar as a general counsel for a quintessential California company called Hang 10, being the chief operating officer, leaving to be the president of a company that was called Guess. Some of you may have known Guess Jeans at the time. I was still a kid then, relatively anyway, before coming back, taking over a small publicly traded company and doing my best to ensure that all the investors made a significant return on their investments through undertaking programs that emphasized non-traditional ways of benefiting a company simply because inertia created a sequence of normal procedures that didn't have to be followed, but which seemed to be inherited by the competitors with which I worked with. After doing that and selling that business, I returned to practicing law. And I guess it's over the last 20-something years, I've been with the firm of Finkelstein and Krinsk, and am the managing partner of that firm, while simultaneously being on the boards of a number of companies or educational facilities, including UC San Diego. I am honored to be here. I hope to make a contribution that is just a fraction of what my predecessors have been able to do. I believe that if someone was to ask me what my objectives are about, in addition to emulating my predecessors, I would say I hope to be able to leverage assets in a way that make the CSU system less dependent on annual allocations from the state legislature, because I'm not certain what the future will hold. I would like to also establish programs that will allow a better potentially a better cooperative involvement with some of the so-called junior colleges that are being worked with, and some additional thoughts that I have, but have not, nor have I done it with this, processed them enough for me to be able to articulate them in ways that would respond to intelligent questions yet. So I beg you to bear with me. This is an extraordinary, from what I've learned and from the orientation that I have, just an extraordinary facility that has a boundless ability to not only be transformational as it already has, but to increase its reputation, its prestige, its perception, to make the jobs easier, and to satisfy not only the people that run it on a daily basis, but those that look to it for leadership in the educational arena on a day-to-day basis. Its achievements and accomplishments to date are extraordinary. I hope in a small way I can aid and abet those accomplishments, which have, at least to date, been abetted by more than I could have imagined of assistance from both the team that exemplifies the people on this board, but also the educators that I've come in contact with from the various component campuses of the CSU system. And I thank you for the opportunity. I hope when you're in San Diego at some point in time, you won't hesitate to contact me. Come on over, spend some time. Everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Krinsk. And again, congratulations to both of you. I know I speak for all my colleagues that we look forward to very valuable input from both of you to the board's deliberations. It's now time for the board to consider the items listed on today's consent agenda. All of the committee items requiring full board approval are listed. Does any trustee wish to remove any item for separate discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve all of the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Lieutenant Governor.
This is the consent agenda.
That is the consent agenda. Would you like to remove an item for discussion?
But what are we consenting on? I didn't think there was a resolution.
The consent agenda is one motion that approves all of these items for approval. If there's anything you'd like to discuss separately, you could make a request to remove that from the consent agenda, and then we'll discuss and vote on that separately.
I'm sorry, let me just look at these really quickly. I didn't realize. The master plan, that's fine. The hotel, is that this one? Is that the Unite Here one? Yeah. Yeah, the Northridge.
I'm sorry, you need to have your microphone on.
So
My apologies, I didn't realize these were on consent. I thought we were taking them up separately.
the Lieutenant Governor would like to pull from consent under the Joint Committee on Finance and Campus Planning, Buildings and Grounds, the approval of various actions related to a hotel development project at Cal State University Northridge.
Okay, we'll pull item 2 from the Joint Committee. Any other requests to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the revised consent agenda? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Any further discussion on the
I'm so sorry. Again, I thought we were taking these up one at a time. I didn't realize they're on consent. Can we also take the student union project at Cal State University Fresno off the consent aside?
All right, let's take a moment
Thank you
so
very
that the
much.
board can fully understand and appreciate where we're at and make sure there's anything else that we need to pull off the consent agenda. Okay, so we have items 2 and 3 that have been requested to be discussed. Can I have a motion to, I'm going to reject the previous motion. I'm going to ask for a new motion to approve the revised consent agenda. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion on the revised consent agenda? Seeing no request, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The revised consent agenda is approved. We will now move to item 2 regarding the CSU Northridge Hotel. Governor, would you like a staff report, or would you simply like to make some comments before we make a motion?
So I serve on the UC Board of Trustees as well. We had a meeting yesterday. So unfortunately, I was not here for the whole presentation. I know the hour is late. So I do not intend to support this because I do think some serious concerns were raised about the management. But if I'm the only one who feels that way, then we can probably just go ahead and go for a vote.
Okay. We do have a recommendation from that committee that was unanimously approved by the committee to approve the resolution. Any other trustee who would like to offer? Trustee Garcia?
Yeah, I would just like to, I guess, hear the Lieutenant Governor's concerns, because I think maybe it does warrant a little more discussion, depending on what the Lieutenant Governor.
Then why don't we go ahead and ask staff to maybe do an abbreviated report before we vote?
Vi, if you could do a short report on what the committee reviewed yesterday and the action of the committee.
Thank you, Chair Day. So I'll start with Northridge.
A brief report on Northridge first.
Right. So the project proposes a hotel on the Northridge site, 3.3 acres, which is adjacent to the Orange Grove, which includes a path to the Performing Arts Center. The trustees approved the location in 2018. One of the concerns was the adequacy of existing student housing sites on the master plan in addition to faculty staff housing. There are 3 other sites on the master plan for student housing, which is in closer proximity to the existing student housing, and as well as 2 sites for faculty staff housing. So that was one of the concerns that was brought forward. The project is a 149-room Hilton Garden Hotel, and the project's estimated at $44 million.
I won't elaborate all of the financial terms that we discussed yesterday. They are in the item, but just to highlight a few of them, 65-year ground lease with a 10-year extension option. The partner is Corvius LLC. They will finance, construct, operate, and maintain the project during the term of the lease. We have key performance indicators to ensure that they meet the expectations of the campus. That includes some key performance indicators for academic performance as well in the partnership. There are financial penalties if they do not meet those performance measures. Upon the end of the lease, the project will revert back to the University Corporation, which is a campus auxiliary through which the development is being structured. I'll pause there and let's see if, President, if you want to add anything or not.
I think another point that was raised has to do with the severe lack of hotel accommodations in our area, and that there was tremendous support on the campus and from our neighbors even about this project. I'm going to defer some of this, the topic of the concerns raised about Corvius. I identified what their response to us was in terms of the criticisms that they had received over military housing. I tried to point out that they are also in the business of student housing on campuses. They have existing partnerships with many institutions of higher ed throughout the country. Some examples: University System of Georgia, Wayne State, Howard, Purdue, more recently with Notre Dame and Illinois Institute of Technology.
Okay, thank you all. And I noticed Trustee Sebelius has a question or a comment.
No, I wanted to mention the point that President Harrison made right now, that Corvus is a humongous organization and that the criticism was due to the cooperation, not the sole creation of military housing. And what President Harrison explained yesterday convinced me that they have a totally different track record when it comes to building of student housing. Also, concern was articulated from the public that student housing is much more needed than a hotel on the campus. And I think to the trustees, it's quite clear that these are 2 different funding models, that one doesn't preclude the other. And President Harrison has also assured us that Northridge is going ahead with planned construction of additional student housing. Lastly, I want to add that tomorrow I will visit the campus of Northridge, and I'm booked in a hotel that is 5.2 miles away. Now, that is not a personal stress on me. It's not difficult for me, but it is clear that when you want to hold a conference or when you want to have a greater gathering of people on a campus, that is not an ideal situation. So the need is quite apparent. We also had, I think yesterday, but also in the past, we had representatives from the neighborhood speak in favor of the hotel construction.
Thank you. Governor, any further comments? Or?
So I see where this is going, but I just think it's important to stay on the record that I do share some of the concerns that were raised about the operator. And I think that we should have more assurances in place before moving forward. But that if we do, watching the process and making sure that commitments that are made are commitments that are kept, and that workers in this facility are treated fairly, and that frankly, we know what's going on, and we are getting adequate information to be able to have the information to know how workers are being treated on this project.
Thank you, Governor. Other Mr. Relier.
I appreciate those comments. The campus has been very diligent in looking at and developing key performance indicators with Corvius. has done a lot of due diligence in looking at their other operations at universities, both within California and outside of California. We're going to monitor this project very carefully. We think we have all the safeguards and accountability in place. The issues with the military housing, we think, are going to be avoided by the kind of key performance indicators we have in place. They were deferred maintenance issues that were just left undone. And of course, we're familiar with deferred maintenance issues in the CSU. But they do have a very good, strong track record in the university community. So we feel very confident that going forward, this is going to be a very good thing for the Northridge campus.
Thank you, Mr. Villiers. Any further questions or comments before I entertain a motion to approve the resolution before the board? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Sorry, does someone else have a comment? No. Ms. Kiss, do we need a roll call vote, hand vote?
You can just do a voice vote and
vote?
call it in the chair's
All
opinion.
those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? Let the record reflect Governor Kounalakis opposed. Next, we'll move to number 3, the approval of various actions related to the new student union project at CSU Fresno. Staff, if you could quickly give a report on what happened yesterday and the recommendation before the board, and then we'll go to Governor Kounalakis for questions.
Thank you, Chair Day. This is a proposed new student union for Cal State Fresno. The project is centrally located on the campus west of the music building. The project will provide multi-purpose space for students, and the project cost is $60 million.
Thank you. And I would add that from a financial point of view, 2 points that I want to emphasize that I did yesterday. First, there was a student fee referendum that was passed in March of 2018 to increase the student body center fee by $298 per year. That referendum passed with a 67% yes vote, so a very strong support from the students. And then with respect to the financing and the debt service coverage ratios, the ratios for the project and the program, as well as the campus, are very good. They all meet our benchmarks. So I'll pause there. President Castro, are there any remarks you'd like to add?
Yes, I think I'd just add that our current student union was built 50 years ago when our student population was about 10,000 students, and today it's 24,000 and growing. So we definitely need this space to support our students, and it will provide excellent space for our clubs, our leadership development for our students, and many other kinds of support services for them.
Thank you, President Castro and staff. Governor Kounalakis.
So it's a pretty significant step up in this fee, and I understand that the overwhelming majority of the students who voted yes because they can afford to pay it. I suspect that the students who voted no didn't vote no because they don't want a new student center, but because they can't afford it. So I just continue to be very concerned over ongoing fee increases in our campuses when I hear from so many students who are having a really hard time affording to stay in school.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Trustee Garcia?
I think when it comes to fee increases of this sort, they're a little odd, I guess, in the sense that well, Trustee Sebelius has pointed them out, I think, twice in the year I've been here. He makes a good point. I mean, we are increasing, on one hand, we're increasing the fee by a lot. On the other hand, the students voted for it. And to speak from a little bit of experience, so I go to Cal Poly Pomona. At Pomona, I guess our second newest building was our recreation center, and it's handled by the student government. And it's, according to a lot of students, it's pretty much the pride of the campus. That building was funded by a student fee increase. I wasn't a student yet when the students voted. When I came in, I guess the fee was already present and the building was built. I just want to speak to the fact that pretty much everyone uses, we call it the brick, right? The Bronco Recreational Intramural Complex. Pretty much everyone uses the brick at least a couple times while they're a student, because that offers many services. Not only, I mean, it's an amazing building. I'm just bragging about it, but it is. There's a climbing wall, tracks, equipment to work out. Personally, I spend a lot of time on the indoor soccer fields, but that's just me. But there's a lot of stuff for everyone, and I can see why students would want a new student union, because it would offer some of the same benefits. And I think yesterday they mentioned some, that there were studies that show how student unions increase retention, and it's a place for a student to spend time in at school and just feel welcome or like they belong there. So I just wanted to add that perspective, I guess.
Thank you, Trustee Garcia. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Trustee Fagan?
Sorry to continue this, but I too share the concern about student fees, and we had a committee a couple of years ago about success fees, which were sometimes put in place without any student input, and sometimes put in place with sort of student votes. But when you came down to it, it turned out there were restrictions on who could vote. There were different ways. We put in rules at CSU that were then adopted by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Brown that eliminated those concerns about who could vote, who could not vote. So I'm sure that President Castro and the vote in Fresno complied with everything. And anybody who wanted to vote, who was a student, could vote, and given plenty of time. And it was a legitimate vote. So in this case, I think the students have indeed spoken, but I share your concerns about some of these fees in the past that were not terrific.
Thank you, Trustee Fagan. Other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. With that, we conclude for the day, and we will now adjourn into closed session to discuss executive personnel matters.
I'm so sorry. Before you adjourn, again, because I wasn't here yesterday, and my apologies, I don't see a place on today's agenda to be able to raise this, but I think it's really important to go on the record about the conversation yesterday about the fourth year of quantitative reasoning. I know that you talked about it for 2.5 hours yesterday. I've had many hours of conversation with my staff and on the margins of, in between these meetings about it. And I just want to go on the record that I have very, very, very serious concerns about this. And I share the concerns of the 300,000 teachers represented by the CTA and many other organizations that are looking at this, that in asking the question, what can we do to increase our graduation rates, that there may be correlation between a fourth year of quantitative reasoning, but there isn't necessarily causation. So I don't want to relitigate it today. I know it's coming back, but I very much hope that before there is a vote on this, we ask for some additional research from the staff, from other organizations or the organizations that are opposing this, to help us have a better understanding of what their opposition is to it is, because there are a lot of professionals in higher education who are raising some serious concerns.
Thank you. And yes, to reassure you on that last point, we spent an extensive amount of time yesterday. Trustee Taylor convened a special meeting the month before. This issue's going to receive a lot more attention, but specifically yesterday, many trustees raised questions and concerns and gave direction to staff on exactly what you just asked. So that will be coming back to the board in November for action. So
thank you.
The November board meeting will be an action item on this issue. Any further questions, comments before I officially adjourn the meeting? So with that, we will officially adjourn into closed session to discuss executive personnel matters. We will reconvene for our next regularly scheduled meeting on November 19th and 20th, 2019. Thank you.